Hello everyone, welcome back to Maple Street. Today we are talking about 8 great black and white romantic films. This is a video I did last year as well, but obviously choosing 8 different movies today. As is always the case with these videos, I'm not limiting it to only these 8 black and white romantic films. I recognize there are plenty of amazing movies out there. Today I'm just giving 8 random shout outs. If there's a movie that didn't make the list, it's possible that it was in last year's video, or I haven't seen it, or I just haven't given it a shout out. But I hope today to give you a mixture of movies you've heard of, movies you haven't heard of, and at the end of the day, hopefully you'll walk away with some recommendations of what to watch next. So I'm going to go in order of release date. The first movie I'm talking about is Marius from 1931. This is from the Marseille trilogy, and the trilogy as a whole is amazing, but I'm really giving a shout out to this first one because it's the only one that really focuses on romance as a core theme of the movie. You have this main character, Marius, who's trying to decide between becoming practically a pirate. Okay. Is he going to live a life on the sea and join a ship crew, or is he going to stay with his lover Fanny and fall in love with her, stay with her, you know, develop a life with her? And that's the movie at its core, at least for this first one. On the sideline, you see a lot of fun stories with other townspeople. That's why I'm including it. And I'm also including it selfishly, not so much for a romantic shout out, but hoping that you watch it and then get hooked like I did and watch the second and third movie, Fanny and Caesar. Anyways, I'm gonna move on to the next movie. It is 1933's Design for Living. This is one of the earliest examples I've seen of a love triangle. I just really love the chemistry between the 3 stars here. It's also a very funny movie and very clever written script. I mean, what do you expect being from Ernst Lubitsch? To be honest with you, it's kind of just a really crazy movie, but that's why I liked it so much. All right, we're jumping ahead to the 40s. My next movie is 1941's Penny Serenade. This movie has Irene Dunne, Cary Grant, and it's a bit of a unique pick for this video because it's not your typical lovey-dovey romantic film. It's very much so an episodic look at a couple's romantic tale, in the sense of it starts from the beginning of them meeting, but then you see when they get married, you see some obstacles they have to go through. You even see a point where they're debating on splitting up, and that's what I love about Penny Serenade is it's kind of a more realistic look at a relationship. It's not only all the highs of a relationship, it definitely pays attention to the lows as well. There are some moments that actually will tug at your heartstrings, and I just thought it was a good way at effectively portraying what a relationship is like. Next up, I'm talking about probably the most well-known movie on this list and last year's list. It's Casablanca from 1942. I recently rewatched this movie for the first time in years, and I was just reminded of why this film is considered one of the best of all time. I really cannot find a flaw from this film. On top of it being an iconic romantic film and seeing that chemistry between Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman, it's also just a really well-made movie. It's just one of those movies that when you're watching it, it doesn't feel like an average movie. You know that you're in for something more, and it feels much more like an experience than it does just sitting down and watching a movie for an hour and a half. If you haven't seen Casablanca, first off, I'm jealous. I hope that you go into it for the romance, but also realize how much greater it is and how much more it is than just a romantic film. But yeah, it is a really good romantic film, and there are so many iconic quotes from this movie. Next up, I'm hopping to 1945, giving a shout out to Brief Encounter. The movie is all about this lady who's struggling in her marriage. There's no chemistry anymore. They've been married for several years, for a long time. It's not going anywhere, and one day she happens to meet this man. I believe it's at a train station. It's been a few years since I've seen it. I hope that doesn't lose credibility on my opinions of movies. I know at some point they're at a train station, but what happens and what flourishes from there and the struggle that they have of whether or not they take this relationship somewhere or if they stay with their current partners. I can't remember if he has a partner or not. I promise I've seen this movie, but what I remember loving about this movie is how engaged I was following their story. Wondering, okay, will they, won't they, what's going to happen? I liked the direction it went in, and I just liked the experience throughout the runtime. Alright, let's move on to the next movie. It is from 1947, starring James Stewart and Jane Wyman. It is Magic Town. Can I just say I love this poster? It just looks like such a fun classic movie. The movie is about James Stewart's character. He runs a polling business and it's not going well until he discovers this small town that is statistically identical to the country's statistics. So in other words, he wants to use this town to poll because it's much easier to poll a small audience than it is an entire country. And along the way, a romance blossoms between him and Jane Wyman. The reason I recommend this one is not for its unique plot or anything. In fact, it's a pretty run-of-the-mill romantic film. What I liked about it a lot is, for one, I found it funny. I also just liked the chemistry between James Stewart and Jane Wyman's characters. And it was one of my earliest introductions to Jane Wyman as an actress. And so what I'm getting at is everyone who's in this movie belongs in the movie. They just do a good job and it was fun watching. And they get some bonus points for having some alumni actors from It's a Wonderful Life. Speaking of A Wonderful Life, it's right around the time that movie came out, and so it's James Stewart in his prime. I love this era of James Stewart. Magic Town just worked really well for me, and I hope you enjoy it too. Okay, we're jumping to 1953 with William Wyler's Roman Holiday. This is definitely another well-known movie, but I wanted to give it a shout out because similar to Casablanca, I did rewatch it last year and was just reminded of how great the movie is. I think what I love most about Roman Holiday, without going into spoiler territory, is it's not your conventional romantic film of the 50s or of the black and white era for that matter. They make decisions that aren't cliche, that make Roman Holiday feel very unique. And it's also impressive that you're able to fall in love with these characters falling in love when they've only known each other for a matter of days. This isn't a movie that takes place over the span of weeks, months, years for that matter. It takes place in a mere number of days, and yet it's so believable what you watch unfold on the screen. I'm also just a sucker for Audrey Hepburn and for Gregory Peck, and to see them in a movie together directed by one of my favorites, William Wyler, it has my taste written all over it, and so I'm a little biased to that. But there's a reason. The movie works. I mean, this could have been a failure where it's like, oh man, what could have been? But it's great. It's incredible. I love it. I highly recommend it. The next movie, I'm jumping all the way to 2011, the first time a 21st century movie has made this kind of list. It's the Best Picture winner, The Artist. The Artist is well known for being a silent film in the 2010s and for being a movie about movies. That's all fun and great, and I don't want to diminish that because that is a great strength to the movie. But at its heart, it's a romance, and it's a good romance too. I love watching this relationship between the two characters grow. What starts as a mere introduction and really more of networking blossoms into this relationship that spans over years, opposed to Roman Holiday, and it just works for me, and I really enjoy it. This is one that I want to revisit too. I haven't seen it in a minute, but I've seen it a few times, and I've enjoyed it every time I have watched it. It's a great movie, and it's a Best Picture winner. I mean, another Best Picture winner to check off the list, right? There you have it, 8 great black and white romantic films for you today. Comment below some movies that you would recommend I check out. I'll let you know if I've seen them or if I haven't. I don't know what other options I have there. Thank you so much for visiting Maple Street. I'll see you next time.